there is a clothing brand that was removed from removed from TikTok because of a controversial ad. And I bet you guys can already tell me why as soon as you hear the name of it. So XXY Athletics suspended from TikTok after releasing pro-women's sports ad. This is from SCNR.com. Shout out to Chris Bertman. Jennifer Say, speak up, stand up, vote with your dollars. Don't buy brands that don't know what a woman is. Truth is counting on you. XXY Athletics, an athletic wear company founded by a former Levi Strauss company executive and backed by a former NCAA swimmer Riley Gaines, was permanently suspended from TikTok after its latest ad on the platform. Founder Jennifer Say announced her company was banned from TikTok in an X post saying, quote, when you run an ad standing up for women's and girls sports, you get banned for life from TikTok, end quote. Say shared the advertisement in question along with her post. Quote, if you think girls and women's equality matter, stand up, says the voiceover of a video. I'm going to play the video rather than read it to you because I think it's important to show kind of what exactly is offensive to TikTok. So let me see if I can get this going. Should I open this up over here? Do we have sound on this? There's no audio for us? Okay. Well, then I'll read it from Scanner. If you think girls and women's equality matters, stand up, says a voiceover as the video depicts a series of female athletes. If you think, quote, if you think girls and women's sports matter and you want your daughters to have an opportunity that you had, stand up. Quote, if you know that it isn't fair or safe to allow males to compete in girls' sports because it's, well, obvious, stand up, the narrator adds. Then Jennifer Say also shared the communication she got from TikTok for Business. Dear XXY Athletics, your account has been permanently suspended because it doesn't comply with our advertising policies. They recommended that they review the ad and they can also work with their sales representative. But they said ultimately a review indicates that your advertising content may violate TikTok's advertising by featuring an offensive content.
Now that's hilarious. The idea that XXXY as a concept is offensive. This is, I don't know who makes the decisions and stuff, but like the idea that you can't talk about the fact that there are men and women and that's too offensive. I don't know what to do with this because it is so insane.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really at a loss. It's like, again, I talk often about the things that I believe our society can handle. I think that our society can handle having trans people walk around dressed in as if they are, as if men are women and women are men. And I think that most polite people would be able to deal with using whatever pronouns they prefer, just so long as they're not obnoxious about it. But the idea that you can't say, hey, it's like trans people can live their lives how they want, but trans women are men and trans men are women. Like the idea that you can't say that without being, attacked, be told that you're saying something offensive is ridiculous because that is just factually, biologically true.
I think it's wild that so many social media platforms, including TikTok, have accepted the trans ideology, transgenderism, lock, stock, and barrel, even though they are the same people who would often yell, like, you're supposed to believe science, trust science, this, that, and the other. Science tells us that there are biological differences between men and women, that male athletes and female athletes, even if they're competing in the same sport, perform very differently. That's why, the hoop for women's basketball is different. That's why female track athletes, report different times than their male counterparts, even if they're running the same race. And I feel sad for the generations of female athletes who will be told, hey, if you feel like this obvious disadvantage that you have against someone who is testosterone, who is biologically built differently than you are, but is allowed to compete in your race because they opted to use different pronouns, I feel sad for them because they're going to be told you are transphobic and you should change your minds rather than believe science, which I thought was the thing they wanted us to do.
And I think that's why when Trump actually talks about this at his rallies, he gets some of the biggest applause, because people are just like, we want a sense of traditional values and normalcy. Just stick to the science, right? Stick to biology, to normalcy. No one is against people living their lives the way that they want to, as long as you're not hurting anybody. And I think everybody in this room and around America probably agrees with that. But when a small segment of the population, like we're talking like 0.5% to 2%, is trying to force something onto the vast majority, that's when there's the pushback. It's all about forcing something onto people that would normally not accept it, even though those people do believe in their right to live the way that they do want to live. And I think that's the major issue that we have seen, that the liberals as a whole are pushing on America, these various agendas, wokeism, DEI, whatever you want to call it. And it's actually dividing America more than uniting it.
I do. I think that's right. I mean, I think this is one of the fears. I touched on this a little bit before, but somebody wins when there's chaos and people can't unite. And I think with this issue, confusing, especially young female athletes, because I agree with you, like there is a level of, I want to say, if you're an adult and you want to live a certain way, I don't want the government or I don't want anyone to tell you you can't. On the other hand, specifically with the transgender ideology, it seems more and more about getting intervention into family lives earlier and earlier. And that is what the problem is for me. I think the fact that this seems to be an ideology that cannot compromise. They say we must have access to children. Children need to know this. They need to comply with this. High school athletes, young children should be taught about this. It should be in books. Like it should be everywhere, is inherently disconcerting. It makes me want to step back and say, what is this actually about? Your right to live a certain way, or your ability to control and dictate the way other people's children should be treated?
So, I mean, if I'm going to put on a little bit of a tinfoil hat here, like if you think, as I do, that there is actual concerted efforts by a subversive ideology to basically tear down the fundamental structures of our government, the LGBT stuff is the tip of the spear. And it really is motivated by an ideologically by ideology that is on par with any other religion. You can listen to trans people talk about saying things like trans people are divine. Trans people are to be held up as the epitome of what a human being could be. They have transcended not just male and female, but they have transcended being a normal human. It is completely and totally the more extreme you get is entirely wrapped in mysticism and occultism. If you remember when Target was getting a lot of heat for the LGBT stuff that they had, one of the artists, now I don't know if these shirts were actually the shirts in Target, but the artist that had drawn the shirts had done a whole line of pro-LGBT stuff that was all mixed in with occult stuff that was saying that transitioning is alchemy and all kinds of again, all kinds of occult imagery, satanic imagery and stuff. And again, I'm a dude, like, listen, man, I grew up listening to Cannibal Corpse, right? Tomb of the Mutilated is one of my favorite records, okay? I am totally fine with this kind of imagery. But the fact is, these people don't think of it as imagery like a horror movie, which is what I looked at that stuff. Like, I grew up watching slasher films when I was a kid, and I wanted to see Nightmare on Elm Street, and all that stuff was cool to me, and that was part of me being into gory death metal and stuff. This is not about that. This is actually occultism, where people are mutilating their bodies. The ultimate part, the ultimate expression of this ideology is to transition. They're going to cut their bodies up. And this needs to be pushed back on. And again, we certainly cannot have a government that is flying the flag of the trans flag. We cannot have a government that is pushing an ideology that at its extremes is telling people to mutilate their bodies. You cannot become a female. You cannot become a male. You can change your body. And if you want to as an adult, I'm like, okay, fine. But you can't have this stuff fed to children, because it is literally warping their minds and making vulnerable children destroy their bodies. The Tavistock stuff that was going on in the UK. I think it was called the Tavistock Clinic. They shut it down because of this. If you look at the cutting edge reports coming out of Europe right now, all of these European countries are pulling back on this and stopping it because they're starting to realize that these people need help, and help is not affirming their mental illness. Right.
So why is it that America is not doing the same thing? Why are we saying, West Virginia is one of the states battling this kind of issue where we are saying actually everyone should accommodate this, especially young students?
Because normies don't really believe it yet. Normies don't
believe what?
Don't believe that there are a lot of children trying to get some kind of puberty blockers, or they're trying to get actual surgery. Normies still think, what? No. Like literally what they think. They're like, what? No, people aren't doing that. Because, and part of the reason is because the left has so successfully made any ideas that come from conservative as radioactive. If a conservative says something, people that are normie Democrats think, well, it came from those crazy Republicans, and you know how they are. So it can't be true. And you hear about Anna Kasparian being like, oh, this isn't true about the migrant that cut up a human being. Like, and she was like, this isn't true. No, it's not true. Not true. And you can go all over Twitter and see the video of her going, it's true, guys. It's true. Because it is true. But the average normie Democrat has been conditioned to disbelieve anything that doesn't come from the official sources. So when they hear things that genuinely sound batshit crazy, they say, that's batshit crazy. It can't be true. But guess what? It is, guys. It's really true. So you have to be able to convince the average normie that these things are really happening. And once you do, they turn away. They're like, no, we have to stop this. And they change their mind. Once they realize that it's happening, they do. So this is, in my opinion, the tip of the spear of trying to destabilize the country. And I think that the more people know the extremes that the activists want to go, the more people will reject the left over the situation.
Well, I think where it gets even more insidious is like when you have these parents on these school boards that are kind of pushing back against this, and then they're deemed by like the director of the FBI and the attorney general as like potential threats to America. And that is something that I think is very insidious. And you see like the FBI going and knocking on people's doors who protest this type of stuff, and including doctors losing their licenses and their livelihoods, some even being imprisoned or, charged with felonies for blocking this kind of stuff. And I think the more and more that type of stuff happens, and I think it will, because the more children are the ultimate targets, especially in schools, and parents feel that they're losing the ability to actually govern their children's lives, then the pushback will become real. I don't think it's at that point yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah, I think it is interesting how much all of this has exposed the fact that schools, the government, but definitely schools, treat the parents as though they are hostile and potentially bad for their own children. Every time I see one of these school boards or whatever that vote on bills that say, or rules that say, if a student, wants to go by different pronouns or a different name, you can't inform the parent, right? Even though the child is a minor, even though they live at home with their parents, even though their parents are providing everything else in their life, hypothetically, you can't tell the parents that their child is opting to go through this sort of gender ambiguous phase or transition or anything like that, because the apparent messaging is that the parent is the danger. And I think that's so wrong. I think we should treat the family like the most important unit in our society. It's the building block that everything else comes from. If parents are struggling, we should support them and help encourage them to grow as parents, but we should never make it so children are inherently learning you have to hide part of yourself from your parent, only tell us at school, keep secrets from them because we have your best interest at heart and they do not.
That alone should be the most obvious red flag. Yeah. Don't tell your parents. This is straight up cult behavior.
That's what predators do.
Yes, that is exactly what predators do.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.